The unexpected war. The sky was burning. Ethan Carter stood on the rooftop of a ruined building, staring at the chaos below. Fires raged across the city, smoke rising like black pillars toward the sky. The once thriving metropolis was now a battlefield. Alien ships hovered above, their dark metal hulls reflecting the glow of destruction. The sound of explosions and distant screams filled the air. "This can't be happening," Ethan muttered. It had only been 7 days since the first warning. At first, no one believed it. The message had come through a strange broadcast, spoken in a deep, unearthly voice. "You have one chance, humans. Accept our terms, or face annihilation." The world laughed. Governments dismissed it as a hoax. Scientists debated whether it was some kind of elaborate joke. But then they arrived. Gigantic alien warships appeared above Earth, blocking out the sun in some places. Their weapons wiped out entire cities in minutes. The nations of Earth fought back, launching everything they had. It wasn't enough. The invaders were stronger, faster, and more advanced. Now, humanity was on the edge of extinction. Ethan clenched his fists. He was just a pilot before all of this, an ordinary soldier in the Earth Defense Forces. But now, he was one of the last survivors in this ruined city. His radio crackled to life, bringing a familiar voice. "Ethan, do you read? It's Commander Hale." He grabbed the radio. "I'm here, sir. Get to the underground base. We have a situation." Ethan knew what that meant. A mission. A last stand. He moved quickly through the crumbling streets, staying low as alien drones scanned the area. The streets were littered with destroyed vehicles and bodies. He ignored the sight, pushing forward. As he approached the underground bunker entrance, the heavy steel doors slid open. Inside, the base was dimly lit, filled with what remained of the resistance. Soldiers, engineers, and scientists huddled around maps and screens. Commander Hale, a grizzled war veteran, stood at the center, his sharp eyes scanning the room. Beside him was something, or someone, Ethan didn't expect. An alien. The creature stood tall, its silver skin glowing under the dim lights. Its deep, golden eyes fixed on Ethan with an intense stare. It wore a dark cloak, unlike the armored invaders outside. The room was silent. Hale broke it first. "Ethan, meet Keldron. He's one of them, but he's not our enemy." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Explain." Keldron's voice was smooth, yet carried weight. "I came to warn you, human. Your people will be wiped out unless you act now." Ethan folded his arms. "Warn us. Your kind is burning our world to the ground." The alien didn't flinch. "Not my kind. Those are the Dominion. A warlike faction that conquers and destroys. I am from the Exiles, a group that fights against them." Hale nodded. "He says there's still a way to stop them." Ethan exhaled sharply. "And what's that?" Keldron took a step forward. "There is a weapon. A lost technology. If you can reach it before the Dominion, Earth might stand a chance." Ethan felt a chill down his spine. A weapon? It sounded impossible, but right now, they had nothing to lose. He looked at Commander Hale. "Where is it?" Keldron's golden eyes burned with intensity. "Deep within the ruins of a lost city. And time is running out." Ethan didn't trust the alien. But something in Keldron's voice told him one thing: he wasn't lying. And if this was truly Earth's last chance, then he had no choice but to take it. The race against time. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Ethan didn't hesitate, he grabbed his rifle and turned to Commander Hale. "When do we leave?" Hale exchanged a quick glance with Keldron. The alien's golden eyes flickered with something Ethan couldn't quite place, determination, or maybe desperation. Now, Keldron said. There was no time for doubt. The Dominion's forces would not wait. If this so-called weapon was real, they had to move fast. Ethan, Keldron, and a small strike team loaded into a modified transport, its engines barely holding together after weeks of war. The underground base faded behind them as they roared into the ruined city. The silence inside the transport was suffocating. Ethan's hands tightened around his rifle. His mind swirled with doubts. Why trust an alien? Why risk everything on a single, desperate mission? But deep down, he knew the truth. If they did nothing, Earth was lost. Keldron sat across from him, his silver skin reflecting the dim red lights inside the transport. He studied Ethan for a moment before speaking. You do not trust me. Ethan didn't even try to deny it. Damn right, I don't. The alien's expression remained unreadable. Good. Trust makes one careless. But understand this, I am not your enemy. Ethan leaned forward. Then why help us? What do you get out of this? Keldron hesitated for the first time. Then he said, because if the Dominion wins, Earth will not be the last to fall. My people are next. Before Ethan could respond, the transport jolted violently. Contact. Dominion war drones, 6 o'clock. The pilot's voice rang out as bright red streaks of plasma cut through the air. The chase had begun. Ethan gritted his teeth and slammed his fist against the comms panel. Evasive maneuvers. Get us to cover. Outside, alien war drones zipped between the crumbling skyscrapers, their sleek, obsidian forms weaving through the wreckage like predators. Their weapons ignited the night, blasting apart roads and abandoned vehicles. One explosion sent the transport skidding sideways. We won't make it at this rate, one of the soldiers shouted. Keldron stood. His eyes glowed faintly. Open the side hatch. Ethan's gut told him this was a terrible idea. Why? The alien turned, his voice eerily calm. Because I am faster than them. Before anyone could argue, Keldron leaped out of the transport, vanishing into the dark streets below. Ethan lunged forward. Are you kidding me? But then, through the back window, he saw it. Keldron wasn't running. He was gliding, his body moving in a way that defied physics, shifting between the shadows, dodging plasma fire as if he knew where every shot would land. Then, he struck. The first drone never saw him coming. One swift movement, its core exploded in a shower of sparks. Another drone adjusted its aim, but Keldron twisted mid-air, landing on its back, ripping its circuits apart with a single strike. The rest of the Dominion drones hesitated. That was their mistake. Ethan grinned. All right then. Let's even the odds. He grabbed the transport's mounted railgun, aimed, and fired. The shot ripped through the sky, shredding 2 more drones into burning wreckage. The final drone tried to escape. Keldron caught it mid-flight. Ethan watched, stunned, as the alien tore out the drone's power core with nothing but his bare hands. The machine collapsed in a heap of metal and flame. The street fell silent. Keldron landed effortlessly, looking up at Ethan. His expression was neutral, but his eyes burned with a silent challenge. Ethan exhaled. Well, damn. The pilot didn't wait for a full analysis. We're clear. We have to move. Ethan pulled Keldron up into the transport just as the engines roared back to full speed. For the first time since this mission began, Ethan felt something strange creeping into his mind. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, they actually had a chance. Into the depths. The sun had long since disappeared, swallowed by the thick clouds of smoke and ash. The city was now a dark silhouette against the chaos of the sky, its once gleaming towers now nothing more than broken skeletons. Ethan felt the weight of the moment. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the very earth was protesting their presence. But there was no turning back. The transport rumbled to a stop at the edge of a massive crater, the remnants of an ancient city buried beneath the rubble. This was the place Keldron had spoken of, a forgotten ruin that held the key to Earth's survival. As they disembarked, the air felt unnervingly still, a silence broken only by the occasional creak of the transport's aging engines. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Ethan scanned the area. The city was in ruins, its streets choked with debris, remnants of ancient buildings standing as silent witnesses to a time long past. He looked at Keldron. "Are we sure this is the right place?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with doubt. Keldron's golden eyes glowed softly in the dim light. "It is. The weapon is buried beneath us." The alien leader's calm tone did little to ease Ethan's nerves. He nodded to the team, signaling them to move forward. Each step felt like they were trespassing on something they didn't understand, something dangerous. As they descended deeper into the crater, the ruins of the ancient city grew more ominous. Towering stone statues, weathered and cracked by time, stood like silent sentinels, their faces worn by centuries of neglect. But as they drew closer to the heart of the city, something changed in the air, an unnatural tension. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Stay sharp," he muttered to the group, his hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. Keldron, however, moved without hesitation. His steps were calculated, sure, as though he had walked these streets before. "The path to the weapon is hidden," Keldron explained. "We must find the entrance, and quickly. The Dominion will be here soon." The tension in Ethan's chest tightened. He had seen firsthand the destruction the Dominion could bring. If they didn't get to the weapon first, it would all be over. They moved in silence, navigating through the ruins. The deeper they went, the more ancient symbols they encountered, etched into the stone walls, glowing faintly as if alive. Ethan ran his fingers along one of the symbols, his curiosity piqued. What did they mean? "Watch out," one of the soldiers called. Too late. A low hum filled the air, and the ground beneath their feet shifted. The wall in front of them slid open, revealing a dark passage leading down into the earth. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. This was it. Without waiting for anyone else, he stepped forward, his hand gripping the edge of the passage. He glanced back at Keldron. "Are you sure this is the right way?" he asked. Keldron didn't reply immediately. His gaze was fixed on the opening, his expression unreadable. Then, his golden eyes met Ethan's, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something deeper, something like fear. "We may not survive what's down there." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ethan swallowed hard. "Then we have no choice but to move forward." The team descended into the depths, the air growing colder, heavier with each step. The walls were covered with the same glowing symbols, now pulsating with an eerie light. The further they traveled, the more the atmosphere seemed to close in on them, pressing down like a weight on their shoulders. And then, they reached the chamber. It was massive, a vast underground hall lit by strange blue flames flickering from braziers in each corner. The floor was a mosaic of intricate patterns, and in the center of the room stood a pedestal, a shimmering object resting upon it, as though it were waiting for them. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. This was it. Keldron stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the pedestal. "The weapon is not what you expect. It is not a gun, nor a bomb." "What is it then?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien's eyes gleamed as he turned to face Ethan. "It is the last hope of your kind, knowledge that can rebuild or destroy everything." The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan's mind raced. Could this really be the key to saving Earth? Or was it a curse, a weapon too powerful to control? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. The ground trembled. The Dominion had found them. The price of power. The walls trembled. Dust rained down from the ancient ceiling as an explosion tore through the upper levels of the ruin. The Dominion had arrived. Ethan spun toward the entrance. The heavy stone doors slammed shut behind them, sealing the chamber. The only exit was gone. "Well, that's just perfect," he muttered. Keldron didn't flinch. His glowing golden eyes remained locked on the pedestal. "We don't need an exit. We need the weapon." Ethan exchanged a glance with Commander Hale. "You better hope whatever's on that pedestal is worth dying for." He stepped forward cautiously. The object resting on the pedestal wasn't a gun, a bomb, or anything that screamed weapon. It was a book. A massive, ancient tome, bound in something that shimmered like living metal. Strange symbols crawled across its surface, shifting as if they had a mind of their own. The air around it hummed with unseen energy. Ethan scowled. "This is the weapon." Keldron's voice was calm, but firm. "This is knowledge. The greatest force in the universe." Hale let out a low whistle. "Somehow, I don't think the Dominion will be impressed by our reading material." Another explosion. The ceiling cracked. Ethan didn't have time for doubts. He grabbed the book. The moment his fingers touched it, the world around him changed. He was somewhere else. A vision. The ruins faded, replaced by a sprawling, golden city, not human, not Dominion, but something else. Towers stretched into the clouds, humming with raw power. Strange ships floated above, defying gravity. And then, he saw them. Tall, radiant beings with eyes that burned like stars. They stood on the precipice of a battle, facing an unstoppable darkness. Ethan felt the weight of history press down on him. This was the last stand of a forgotten race, their final moments before they were wiped from existence. The vision shifted. A single being, clad in flowing silver armor, sealed the book away, whispering something Ethan couldn't understand. But he felt it that a warning. The book held power, power that could either save or consume everything. Then, in an instant, the vision vanished. Ethan gasped, snapping back into reality. The chamber came rushing back, along with the sounds of battle. Keldron was staring at him. "You saw it, didn't you?" Ethan nodded slowly. His mind was still racing, but there was no time to process it now. The Dominion were here. The stone walls exploded inward as hulking, armored figures poured into the chamber. Their dark exosuits gleamed under the pale blue light, their weapons humming with deadly energy. The lead soldier. A massive, reptilian brute with glowing crimson eyes, stepped forward. "You are too late," it rumbled. "The book belongs to the Dominion now." Ethan smirked. "You sure about that?" Then he opened the book. Light erupted from its pages, swallowing the room in a blinding storm of raw energy. Unleashing the unknown. The universe broke apart. Or at least, that's how it felt when Ethan opened the book. A tidal wave of blinding light roared out, flooding the chamber like a sun had ignited inside the ancient ruins. The air crackled with raw energy, and an invisible force slammed into everyone, human, alien, Dominion alike, sending them sprawling across the stone floor. Ethan wasn't in control. His hands burned as if he were holding a star. Symbols from the book crawled onto his skin, searing into his mind, branding themselves deep into his thoughts. He felt memories that were not his own, ancient knowledge, forgotten wars, the rise and fall of civilizations that no longer existed. And in that moment, Ethan understood. The book wasn't a weapon. It was a test. A test to see if humanity was worthy of wielding the power within. Ethan. Someone was shouting his name, but the voice sounded distant, muffled, like it was coming from another world. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the light vanished. Ethan gasped as he crashed back into his body. The book slammed shut in his hands. His vision swam. The chamber was in ruins, Cracks lined the walls, strange blue fire flickered in the air, and the Dominion soldiers were scattered, some completely unconscious. But not all of them. The Dominion commander still stood. His glowing red eyes burned with fury. He staggered forward, his armor scorched, but his massive form still radiated power and rage. "You don't understand what you've done," the Dominion growled. Ethan forced himself to stand. His legs felt like lead, his mind still reeling from what he had seen. But one thing was clear now. The book chose him. And that meant he had the power to fight back. Keldron approached cautiously. "You survived." Ethan met his gaze. "Barely." His hand still tingled with lingering energy, the symbols glowing faintly on his skin before fading. He didn't know what it meant yet, but there was no time to figure it out now. The Dominion commander roared. The power of choice. The Dominion commander raised his pulse cannon, and fired. Ethan didn't have time to think. His instincts screamed at him to move, but before he could react, something impossible happened. The air bent. The shot, a deadly blast of white-hot plasma, froze mid-air. The light around it distorted, warping like ripples in water. Then, just as suddenly, the plasma shot reversed direction, blasting back toward the Dominion commander. The explosion sent the hulking alien crashing into the stone wall, leaving a crater of shattered rock. Silence filled the chamber. Ethan's heart pounded. He stared down at his hands. He hadn't even moved. The book's energy still tingled in his veins, the symbols on his skin briefly glowing before fading again. What just happened? He didn't get a chance to process it. Keldron was already beside him. "The book chose you," the alien murmured. "And it is awakening your potential." Ethan barely heard him. His head felt like it was splitting in half. Flashes of knowledge, ancient texts, lost sciences, forgotten wars, spilled into his mind, overwhelming him. But one thing stood out above all. The book wasn't a weapon. It was a tool. A guide. And it was offering him a choice. Power, or wisdom. Destruction, or salvation. The Dominion commander let out a guttural growl, dragging himself from the rubble. His armor was cracked, his glowing red eyes burning with pure rage. "You think this changes anything?" he snarled. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, human." Ethan exhaled sharply. He was done running. "You're right," he admitted. "But I know one thing." The air shifted again. A low hum filled the chamber as the energy inside the book reacted to his thoughts. Symbols in the ancient ruins around them lit up, coming to life. The entire structure was awakening. Ethan took a step forward. "Your people only know how to take, how to conquer. You think power is the only thing that matters." The Dominion commander sneered. "Because it is." Ethan shook his head. "No. Power without understanding is just destruction. And I'm done letting people like you decide the fate of the galaxy." He raised his hand, not in attack, but in command. The ground shook violently. Cracks split through the chamber floor. The air hummed with unseen energy as the ruins responded to him, as if the very planet itself had been waiting for this moment. The Dominion soldiers faltered. Some took a step back. Even their commander, still seething, seemed to hesitate. Because something was happening that even they did not understand. Ethan looked down at the book in his hands. He had a choice to make. And time was running out. The final choice. The chamber breathed. Ethan felt it in his bones, a pulse, a heartbeat, something ancient stirring. The ruins were no longer just stone and dust. They were alive, aware, waiting. Waiting for his choice. The Dominion commander bared his fangs, pushing himself out of the rubble. His red eyes burned with fury. "You don't understand, human. That book isn't power, it's a curse. Ethan tightened his grip on the ancient tome. Then why do you want it so badly? The alien snarled. Because only the strong should wield it. Ethan took a step forward, feeling the energy shifting around him. Symbols on the walls blazed to life, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The book responded, its cover shimmering, its knowledge whispering in his mind. Keldron stepped beside him. His golden eyes glowed softly. Ethan. Choose wisely. What you do next will define not just Earth's fate, but the fate of countless worlds. The choice burned in Ethan's mind. Use the book as a weapon. Destroy the Dominion here and now, ending the war in a single, devastating moment. But at what cost? Use the book as a guide. Unlock its secrets, not for destruction, but for something greater, a future where humanity wasn't just surviving, but evolving. The Dominion commander growled. Choose, human. Will you fight, or will you fall? Ethan exhaled. His choice was clear. He lifted the book, its energy wrapping around him, the symbols crawling up his arms. And instead of striking down his enemy, he let go. The book floated, hovering in midair, spinning slowly. The energy inside it no longer burned, it flowed, reaching outward, touching the ruins, the air, the people around it. The Dominion soldiers staggered back, confused. Their weapons short-circuited. Their commander's face twisted in rage. What are you doing? Ethan looked him in the eye. Something you'll never understand. Then the book unleashed its true power. A tidal wave of knowledge erupted, not as a weapon, but as a force that rippled across the chamber, across the battlefield, across the entire world. It wasn't destruction. It was truth. Memories of the old civilization poured into everyone's minds, the rise and fall of an empire, the mistakes that led to ruin, the warnings left behind. The lesson that power alone would never be enough. The Dominion commander froze. His red eyes flickered, not with anger, but with something else. Understanding. For the first time, the warrior hesitated. Keldron stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Now you see. The chamber settled. The symbols dimmed, returning to their slumber. The book, its purpose fulfilled, sealed itself shut. And in the silence that followed, the war ended. Because knowledge had done what weapons never could. It had changed the future. Epilogue. Weeks later, the sky was no longer burning. Ethan stood on the same rooftop where it all began, looking out over a rebuilding world. The Dominion had withdrawn. Not defeated. Changed. Negotiations had begun. The war, once thought unwinnable, had ended without a single final battle. Keldron stood beside him. You did the impossible. Ethan smirked. Did I? The alien nodded. You proved that humanity's greatest weapon was never destruction. Ethan looked at his hands. The symbols had faded. The book was gone, buried deep beneath the ruins. It had tested him, and he had passed. He turned to Keldron. What now? The alien smiled. Now, we build something better. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan believed it. The war was over. The future had begun.